Pussy grab flag! Pussy.
Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 5.
New documents say the man accused of kidnapping and sexually assaulting a gas station worker uttered Allah Akbar during the assault, which means God is the greatest in Arabic. Thank you for joining us tonight. Stephanie is off. Abdul Rahman Ali refused to show up at court today, so the judge set bail at $1 million without him. He's facing 5 felony charges, including rape, kidnapping, assault, and terrorizing. Today, we learned new, disturbing details about what happened Wednesday at a Mapleton gas station. Valley News Team's crime and safety reporter, Nicole Johnson, has more.
An employee at this gas station tells police she was working when a man came in trying to hug and kiss her behind the counter. Another employee working says she saw Abdul Rahman Ali grab the victim, calling her his wife, and pulling her into the women's bathroom. The victim says Ali started to rape, slap, hit, and kick her. And when she tried to get out, she says Ali repeatedly threw her against the wall, knocking her to the ground. Others working called 911. And when investigators pulled up, they kicked the door in, finding Ali naked and the victim beaten and crying. She told police Ali was speaking during the assault. She wasn't sure if it was English or another language, but she says she understood one thing he said. According to court documents, Ali uttered Allah Akbar, which in Arabic means God is the greatest.
In an expensive BMW, 2 men drive around Derby looking for young girls, vulnerable children, to impress and then abuse. This CCTV footage shows them approaching girls in the street and trying to lure them into the vehicle. Abid Sadiq and Mohammed Learcat were the ringleaders of a 2-year campaign of rape and exploitation of girls, one as young as 12. Here, Learcat buys vodka in a petrol station. Moments later, he was plying a girl with the drink before holding her down for another man to abuse.
Cruising the streets of Derby, the men would groom the girls that they found. They'd offer them a ride in their car and then give them cigarettes, alcohol and even drugs. Sometimes the girls would be brought to properties like this one. They'd be told that there was a party, but once inside they'd be raped. Violent abuse that was often filmed on mobile phone.
Karen's daughter Jane was just 11 when she was befriended by an Asian man 10 years her senior. A friendship which began with gifts and rides in flash cars quickly turned into something very different.
One day she came back, and I'll never forget. She came walking up the road and she was still drugged up, and she'd been taken to Manchester that night and then brought back the next morning.
Karen says Jane, who've changed both their names, had clearly been raped. Soon there were queues of different men coming to call.
I got a video sent to my phone. 3 Asian men assaulting my daughter. They were calling her white trash. They were calling her a prostitute, saying she was nothing but like a dog.
A large number of police were at Nottingham Crown Court today as the men were sentenced. Their horrific crimes have caused much public anger.
They're incredibly dangerous men. Not only were they violent, but they used intimidation, violence, they sexually abused and assaulted the girls, and they were a clear threat, as can be seen.
The young victims can't be identified, but after the trial, one said, "They first approached me during one afternoon and took me to a park. Even in the beginning I thought they were scary, but I was insecure and lonely. My advice to other girls, is don't take anyone at face value. The two men are both married with children. They kept their activities secret from their families. They did, though, involve friends. During 3 trials, a gang of men were convicted of related offences against girls. Police believe the gang could have targeted up to 60 victims. Victims the court heard who were used, abused and terrified. Jonathan Samuels, Sky News, Nottingham.
So with the debate raging over taking refugees from the Middle East, a horrific story out of Sweden has now gotten international attention. 3 men have been arrested there, accused of raping a young woman and streaming it live on Facebook for 3 hours. Now the nationality of 2 of those suspects is coming into question. For more on this, we go to Trace Gallagher in our West Coast newsroom. Trace.
Martha, this happened about 40 miles outside of Stockholm. Police there got several calls on Sunday morning from people who claimed they were watching a Facebook live stream of 2 men sexually assaulting a woman who appeared to be unconscious or intoxicated. When police arrived at the apartment, they found 3 men and a woman. All 3 men were arrested. A Swedish newspaper says the 2 men accused of the rape are Afghan immigrants. The other man, who's charged with not stopping the assault, is Swedish. The nationalities of the accused are controversial because Sweden, like Germany and other European countries, is having a fierce debate over immigrants and refugees. And in Sweden, this would be the 2nd rape in 3 months involving Afghan immigrants. In October, 5 Afghans were convicted of raping a teen, yet they were not deported, and only one was given, or they were only given a year in jail.
Tony Bugle, the founder of Marias, which is an organization that stands for Mothers Against Radical Islam and Sharia. And the title of this program, ladies and gentlemen, is Victim of Muslim Grooming / Rape Gangs Speaks Out. Tony, an honor and a privilege to have you on the Glazov Gang.
Thanks for inviting me.
Tony, let us begin. You were a victim of Muslim grooming gangs in the UK. This is a huge crisis now, just madness and barbarity going on in the United Kingdom. And you'd like to come forward and discuss your experience and also what you'd like to do to the victims today and potential victims. Share with us what happened.
I was 15 years old. I was brutally gang raped, violently gang raped. I ended up living homeless in London, and a young girl that I lived on the streets with, and one of the things you don't do when you live rough on the streets, you don't give your real name. And I only ever knew her as Claire, never knew her last name or her real first name. She was 12 years old. She was being prostituted out by Pakistani men. Which back then, you've got to remember, I'm 46, and back then you knew of Pakistanis, but we knew nothing of Islam or Muslim. She had been, they took her in basically with kindness, you know, we'll give you somewhere safe to stay, etc., etc., etc. And unfortunately, what they did was got her hooked on drugs, and eventually one night, she got quite badly beaten whilst a man was having sex with her. I stepped in to help to get her out of the way, but she was in a pretty bad way. So I went and got a police officer to try and get her somewhere safe. And because I did that, the way they looked at it is that I had lost them money. So I was then on several occasions cornered by 3, sometimes 4. I was beaten, punched, kicked. I had my hair, I was dragged along the floor. Because as far as they're concerned, her debt now had become my debt, and they expected me to work off what they claimed she owed.
Tony, our hearts go out to you. You're in our prayers, in our thoughts. Thank you for sharing this with us, Tony. And this is dealing with a larger phenomenon while you're on the show. These were Muslim Pakistanis. This was happening to you and happening also to so many victims, and today happening not just randomly, as I would like to discuss with you. It's happening because you were a white kafir girl, and this was an assault by Islam. Could you give us the political, ideological perspective on why this happened to you and why it's happening to so many young white kafir girls in England?
In my personal opinion, from what I'm seeing now, as I said, back then I didn't have an understanding of Islam or an understanding of Muslim. But even then, when I was being attacked, I was told repeatedly that I was white trash, that I was a white whore. So that was a regular. So as time has gone on, and obviously we now have this, and when it is endemic, it is a major epidemic sweeping across the country. You start to hear girls, a lot of girls have started to come forward and speak to me, and you hear the same thing. I was called white bitch, white trash, white whore.
And Tony, I'm sorry for interrupting. For our viewers, watch our 2-part series with Gavin Bobby on Muslim rape gangs in the United Kingdom. You know, the stats now coming out, they think that almost 1 million girls have been affected in the last decade or 2 decades. But Tony, the authorities, the UK police, child services, the media, they have betrayed these girls. Tell us how.
It's been completely ignored. Girls who have gone to the authorities, for example, one girl who's in touch with me, she's now 30. She was 14 years old. Her parents did report it, and the police officer's exact words were, she's a prostitute, she's a known prostitute, she'll grow out of it. Well, she's 14. You can't be a prostitute at 14.
Why are UK authorities and the media and child services so afraid to tell the truth and to do something? I mean, they're even calling the rapists and the gangs, quote unquote, Asian, as if it's like some Chinese persons from China, whereas in fact, these are Pakistani Muslims and Arabs from the Middle East. This is an Islamic phenomenon.
The problem we've got 2 problems. The first problem is political correctness. So the word Asian tars all, which I find wholly offensive. We do not have gangs of Sikhs going out raping young girls and raping them because they happen to be white. We don't have gangs of Chinese or Japanese or Vietnamese. These are gangs of Muslim men. But there's also the fear of the word racist, the fear of the word Islamophobic. These are words that are being used now to shut down any debate, to shut down anything you may or may not say.
So Tony, tell us why you started Marius, what it is doing, and how people can help.
I started Marius because it became, especially after Lee Rigby, as everybody knows, and then Rotherham broke. But the numbers aren't stopping. People think that they're only talking about historical cases. There are new cases every single day. It's not stopping because as far as they're concerned, we had a Muslim man, he raped an 11-year-old girl and he walked free because his wife couldn't speak English. This is happening because they know our UK law will not address it in the seriousness that it is. Our prisons are full, and I'm not saying they're full of just Muslims, but in London alone, when they tell us that Muslims are 4% of our population, in just London alone, 27% of the inmates are Muslim. And they are in there for drugs, violence, rape.
Tony, where can viewers find you that want to help you and get involved in standing up for the UK girls that are the victims here and the left is betraying them?
They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on Twitter, as you know. And they can also find me via my email, which is mariusagainst@gmail.com. So there is places where they can contact us. And we are getting girls now that are coming forward. We're also getting people that remember one particular woman that I went to see. She remembers young girls as young as 12 being brought into a taxi office where she worked when she was only 14. And they were always white girls. And people keep telling us that one of the favourite tricks is to say they're not true Muslims. When they go to prison, they have an imam, a Quran, a prayer mat, and they don't have to eat. They only get halal meat and no pork. If they're not true Muslims, why are they still practicing it? Because they are Muslim.
And of course, Surah 4:3 and so many other teachings in Islamic theology inspires and sanctions what they are doing in terms of rape and vis-a-vis the kafir. That's for our next edition. Tony, you are in our hearts, in our prayers. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, for being on the front lines, and for protecting all women, including Muslim women, because I've looked it up, and you're called racist and Islamophobe, but it is you who's also standing up for Muslim girls and Muslim women.
I've taken Muslim women into my home.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything that you're doing, Tony. We hope that you'll be back for another edition, and we'll discuss this further.
I look forward to it.